When they buried me alive, I walked out laughing. The fluorescent lights in the town hall hummed above my head like angry wasps. I stood at the podium, my hands trembling as Mayor Harrison slammed down a folder thick with papers. His face was red, his voice booming across the packed room. "Aria Bennett," he said, his words dripping with false sorrow. "We have evidence that you embezzled $200,000 from your father's legacy fund." The room erupted. Gasps echoed off the wooden walls. I saw Mrs. Patterson, who used to bring me cookies, shake her head in disgust. My business partner, Marcus, wouldn't even look at me. The accusations were lies complete, calculated lies, but nobody cared about the truth. "This is insane," I stammered. "My father built that fund to help families in need. I would never. The bank statements don't lie." Council member Victoria Cross interrupted, her smile sharp as a knife. She held up papers I'd never seen before, covered in signatures that looked like mine but weren't. Security escorted me out through the back door. Outside, the autumn air bit at my skin. My phone buzzed with messages, friends cutting ties, clients canceling contracts, my aunt telling me not to contact the family again. They'd buried me alive without a trial, without mercy. I spent 3 days in my apartment, ignoring the pounding on my door and the whispers in the hallway. On the 4th day, I drove to my father's old warehouse on the edge of Eldridge Falls. The building smelled like dust and motor oil, exactly how I remembered it from childhood. Dad had been a mechanic, but he was also a meticulous record keeper. I pulled open rusty file cabinets and found decades of documents, receipts, contracts, letters. As I read through them, a pattern emerged. The town council had been skimming money from public projects for years. Dad had documented everything but never acted on it. Maybe he'd been too afraid. I found his diary from 15 years ago. One entry made my blood run cold. "The council threatened me today. They want me silent about the bridge contract. I have to protect Aria." A knock at the warehouse door made me jump. A man in his 60s stood there, gray-haired and weathered. "Aria Bennett? I'm Leo Brennan. I was a journalist before Harrison ran me out of town. Your father and I were friends." Leo's eyes were kind but haunted. "I heard what they did to you at that meeting. The same thing happened to me when I tried to expose them. Why are you here?" I asked. "Because they've gone too far this time," he said. "And because your father would want someone to help you fight back." Leo brought me to a dingy apartment above an old bookstore. Inside, 3 people waited. Tyler, a 20-something tech genius with purple hair, Carmen, a sharp-eyed researcher who'd lost her teaching job for questioning the school budget, and Knox, a former bouncer with arms like tree trunks who'd been framed for assault when he refused to intimidate voters. "We're all outcasts," Carmen explained, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs. "The council destroys anyone who threatens their control." Tyler cracked his knuckles. "But we've got skills they don't know about." Over the next week, we met every night in that cramped apartment. Tyler taught me how to navigate the dark corners of the internet, finding deleted emails and hidden financial records. Carmen showed me how to cross-reference documents, building timelines of corruption. Knox became my bodyguard, watching for anyone following us. Our first move was small but strategic. Tyler uncovered evidence that council member Pierce had been billing the town for luxury hotel stays during business trips that never happened. We leaked it anonymously to a regional news blog. The story went viral locally within hours. Pierce held a defensive press conference, sweating under the cameras. It wasn't much, but watching him squirm gave me my first real smile in weeks. "This is just the beginning," Leo said, his hand on my shoulder. "Are you ready for more?" I thought about my father's diary, about years of silence and fear. "I'm ready," I said. Mayor Harrison's nephew, Bradley, owned the largest construction company in 3 counties. He'd just won a contract, to renovate the old courthouse, a deal worth $3 million. Tyler discovered the bidding process had been rigged, with other contractors' submissions mysteriously disqualified for technical errors. I spent 2 weeks building our case. Carmen found emails between Bradley and Victoria Cross discussing kickbacks. Tyler recovered deleted financial transfers showing Bradley had paid Harrison $50,000 the day before the contract was announced. Knox intimidated a former employee into giving us a sworn statement about falsified inspection reports. The night before the contract signing ceremony, we acted. Tyler hacked into the town hall's presentation system. When Bradley stood up to accept his award, the screens behind him lit up with evidence, emails, bank transfers, forged signatures, everything. The crowd went silent. Reporters scrambled for their cameras. Harrison tried to shut down the projectors, but Tyler had locked the system remotely. I watched from the back of the room, wearing sunglasses and a hood. When Bradley's face went pale and Harrison started shouting about technical glitches, I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not loud, but enough that the people near me turned to stare. The contract was suspended pending investigation. Bradley's company lost 2 other major clients within days. The local newspaper ran front-page stories for a week. The town was starting to whisper my name again, but this time with uncertainty instead of contempt. Success made them desperate. 1 week after the courthouse scandal, someone ran me off the road. My car spun out on a wet curve, crashing into a ditch. Knox found me minutes later. He'd been following at a distance, suspicious of a truck he'd seen tailing me. "That was no accident," he said, helping me out of the wreck. My shoulder was bruised, my head ringing, but I was alive. The brake line had been cut. Knox found evidence of tampering that even the police couldn't ignore, though they barely investigated. "These things happen with old cars," the officer said, not meeting my eyes. After that, we moved operations constantly, never sleeping in the same place twice. Tyler set up digital security measures, encrypting everything. Carmen started documenting threats we received, building a pattern of harassment. But something else bothered me. Small things kept going wrong. People knowing our meeting locations before we arrived, information leaking before we were ready. Someone close was feeding information to the council. One night, I was reviewing old photos of my father on my laptop when I noticed something. In a picture from a council fundraiser 2 years before his death, he stood next to Leo, both men looking tense. Behind them, partially hidden, was Victoria Cross, watching them with an expression I couldn't quite read. I showed Tyler. "Can you find out if Leo ever worked with Victoria?" His fingers flew across the keyboard. What he found made my stomach drop. 10 years ago, Leo had written 3 articles praising Victoria's campaign for city council, glossy pieces that ignored her questionable business practices. The articles had been scrubbed from most archives, but Tyler found cached versions. "Could be nothing," Tyler said slowly. "Could be everything." I didn't want to believe it. Leo had been so helpful, so kind, but my father had taught me to trust evidence, not feelings. I confronted Leo in the warehouse at dawn, with Knox standing nearby for backup. Leo's face crumbled when I showed him the articles. "I was a different person then," he said quietly. "Victoria offered me money when my wife was sick, when medical bills were drowning us. I wrote what she wanted, but when I finally investigated her honestly, she destroyed me for it." He pulled out his own file, thick with documents. "Your father helped me see the truth. We worked together for months before he died, gathering evidence. But then he had his heart attack, and I thought the fight was over. Did my father's heart attack just happen?" I asked, the question I'd been afraid to voice for weeks. Leo's silence was answer enough. Carmen found the truth in hospital records Tyler accessed. My father's death certificate listed natural causes, but his medical history showed no heart problems. The doctor who signed the certificate, Dr. Maxwell Warren, had received a large cash payment from an offshore account 3 days after Dad died. An account traced back to a shell company Victoria cross-controlled. My hands shook as I read the documents. They hadn't just buried me alive. They'd literally buried my father. But there was more. Deep in Dad's papers, I found a safety deposit box key and an address. Inside the box was a flash drive with years of recorded conversations, video footage, and financial records. My father had been building a case against the entire council, evidence so comprehensive it could bring down everyone. He'd been murdered to keep him silent. I looked at Leo, at my team, at the mountain of evidence before us. We're not just exposing corruption anymore, I said. We're taking down everyone responsible for my father's death, and I'm going to make sure they know exactly who did it. Psychological warfare is an art form, and I became a master. We didn't need to attack directly, we just needed to make them attack each other. Tyler created fake email accounts and sent messages between council members, each one designed to spark paranoia. A note to Harrison suggesting Victoria was cooperating with federal investigators. A message to Pierce implying Bradley was planning to testify against everyone. Carefully worded texts that played on old grudges and suspicious alliances. Within 2 weeks, the council was fracturing. Harrison confronted Victoria during a public meeting, accusing her of leaking information. She fired back, bringing up his nephew's legal troubles. Pierce started missing meetings, hiring a lawyer. Bradley closed his business and tried to flee to Florida, but Knox tipped off the FBI about his tax evasion. Carmen and I visited people my father had helped over the years, families who'd received scholarships, small businesses he'd supported. We told them the truth about his murder and showed them evidence. One by one, they started speaking up at town meetings, demanding investigations. The local newspaper, once controlled by Victoria's friends, got a new editor after we anonymously provided evidence of editorial corruption. The new editor, Amanda Foster, was hungry for truth and unafraid of power. I attended a council meeting in disguise, watching from the back. When Victoria stood to defend herself against mounting accusations, her voice cracked. Pierce fumbled with papers, looking lost. Harrison's face was gray with stress, and I laughed. Not loud, not obvious, but a small sound of satisfaction. The woman next to me smiled uncertainly, like maybe it was okay to find humor in watching powerful people crumble. The final trap required perfect bait. We spread rumors through carefully selected channels. Aria Bennett was ready to negotiate, to sell her father's evidence in exchange for clearing her name and leaving town forever. The council couldn't resist. They agreed to meet at the Grandview Hotel, Eldridge Falls's fanciest venue, under the pretense of a reconciliation gala. To heal the town's divisions, the invitation read. I spent 2 days preparing. Carmen helped me choose a dress, elegant but not flashy, powerful but approachable. Leo coached me on body language and talking points. Tyler rigged the hotel's sound system and cameras, everything streaming to secure servers and directly to Amanda Foster at the newspaper. The night of the gala, I walked into the ballroom like I owned it. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead. Council members and local elites mingled awkwardly, unsure whether to shun me or play nice. "Aria, so good of you to come," Victoria said, her smile plastic. She wore too much perfume and too little genuine warmth. "I wouldn't miss it," I replied, matching her false cheer. Harrison cornered me near the buffet. "Let's discuss terms in the private dining room. Just us and the council." "Of course," I said. "But I'd like to propose a toast first. For my father's memory." I clinked a glass, drawing everyone's attention. The room quieted. Knox stood near the doors, casual but alert. Leo watched from a corner, his camera ready. Tyler monitored everything from a van outside. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady. "Tonight is about truth. My father, Michael Bennett, was murdered," I said, and the room erupted in shocked murmurs. "He was killed because he documented decades of corruption, fraud, and criminal conspiracy by Eldridge Falls's town council." Victoria started toward me, but Knox stepped forward, shaking his head. Harrison yelled about defamation, but I kept talking, my voice growing stronger. "I have his evidence. Financial records showing $2 million stolen from public projects. Emails discussing bribes, kickbacks. Recorded conversations about threatening citizens who asked questions. And medical records proving my father's death wasn't natural." Tyler's signal came through my earpiece. Streaming Live Now. The room's large screens flickered to life, displaying documents, bank statements, email chains. Victoria Cross bribing inspectors. Bradley Harrison rigging contracts. Pierce embezzling education funds. Dr. Warren accepting payment to falsify a death certificate. Years of crime laid bare for everyone to see. "You can't prove anything," Victoria shrieked, but her face was white. I pulled out the flash drive, holding it up. "This contains everything, and copies are already with the FBI, the State Attorney General, and every major news outlet within 200 miles. Harrison lunged for me, but Knox caught him easily, pushing him back into a chair. Pierce tried to run and nearly knocked over the champagne tower. People pulled out their phones, filming everything, sharing it instantly. I walked among them, past their shocked faces and desperate denials. Amanda Foster burst through the doors with photographers, capturing their panic for tomorrow's front page. And I laughed, loud and clear and free. The sound echoed in that beautiful ballroom, drowning out their protests and excuses. They'd buried me alive, but I'd clawed my way out. And now they were the ones suffocating under the weight of their own crimes. The arrests began within 48 hours. FBI agents swarmed the town, seizing records and interviewing witnesses. Harrison was charged with racketeering and conspiracy to commit murder. Victoria faced fraud and bribery charges. Pierce was arrested for embezzlement. Dr. Warren lost his medical license and faced manslaughter charges. Bradley tried to cut a deal, testifying against his uncle in exchange for a reduced sentence. I attended his deposition, watching him squirm under questioning. He couldn't meet my eyes. Marcus, my former business partner who'd abandoned me so quickly, came crawling back with apologies. I met him at a coffee shop downtown. "Aria, I'm so sorry," he said. "I should have believed you." "You should have," I agreed calmly. "But you chose to protect yourself instead. That's fine, it's human, but we're done." I slid papers across the table, documentation showing he'd known about some of the council's corruption and had kept quiet to maintain his contracts. Not enough to prosecute, but enough to destroy his reputation if it became public. "If you ever use my name, my father's name, or pretend we were friends," I said softly, "these go public. Understand?" He nodded, pale and trembling. Mrs. Patterson came to my door one evening, crying. "I'm so ashamed. I should have known better." I remembered the cookies she used to bake, the kindness she'd shown me as a child. "You were scared," I said. "They made everyone scared, but you can make better choices now. Not everyone deserved punishment. Some just deserved the chance to do better. But for those who directly hurt me and my father, I made sure their downfall was thorough, legal, and very, very public." The town slowly changed. New council members were elected, people with actual integrity. Amanda Foster kept investigating, uncovering smaller pockets of corruption and exposing them with relentless enthusiasm. I used my father's legacy fund finally returned to its rightful purpose to help others. Carmen got her teaching job back with a promotion. Tyler started a legitimate cybersecurity business. Knox opened a gym for at-risk youth. Leo published a book about Eldridge Falls's corruption, a bestseller that sparked reform movements in similar towns across the region. We gathered one last time in the warehouse, now cleaned up and renovated into a proper office space. "You did it," Leo said, raising a beer. "Your father would be so proud." "We did it," I corrected. "None of this happens without all of you." Tyler grinned. "So what's next for you?" I'd been thinking about that. Eldridge Falls felt smaller now, not suffocating exactly, but limited. The whole experience had changed me, taught me things about power and justice and resilience I'd never known I needed to learn. "I'm leaving," I said. "Not running away, just moving forward. There's a nonprofit in Chicago that helps whistleblowers and corruption victims. They offered me a job." Carmen hugged me tight. "You'll be amazing." Knox nodded approvingly. "You'll scare the hell out of corrupt officials everywhere." "Good," I said, and we all laughed. 3 months later, I stood on Morrison Hill, the highest point overlooking Eldridge Falls. The town spread below me, peaceful in the afternoon light. Smoke rose from chimneys, cars moved along Main Street. Life continued in its ordinary way. But it was different now. Better. Freer. My phone buzzed with a message from Tyler. "Just found something interesting in the state capitol's budget records. Might be nothing, might be something. Want me to dig?" I smiled. There were always more fights, more injustices, more people who needed someone willing to stand up and refuse to stay buried. "Dig," I texted back. "Send me everything." The wind picked up, pulling at my hair, carrying away the last whispers of who I used to be, the trusting, naive girl who thought the world was fair. That girl was gone, buried in that terrible council meeting. But what walked away was stronger, sharper, dangerous to those who preyed on the weak. They tried to bury me alive, to suffocate my voice and steal my father's legacy. They'd failed spectacularly. I turned away from Eldridge Falls, walking toward my car and whatever came next. Behind me, the town continued its healing, forever changed by the woman they'd tried to destroy. And as I drove away, I laughed not from bitterness or revenge, but from genuine joy. The free, unstoppable laughter of someone who'd been buried alive and walked out stronger, who'd turned betrayal into power, who'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so undeniably, impossibly triumphant that your enemies can only watch in stunned silence as you walk away laughing. The road stretched ahead, full of possibilities. I was ready for all of them.